Hey moms, Katie again here 2 days in a row. Wow, aren't you lucky? I am sitting here with Jillian, and we've got lots of awesome stuff to talk about in terms of what she does, her life healing practice, and the importance of self-care. So this is going to be a really, really cool interview. I'm actually excited for the replay, and I'm going to show you around her office real quick. See if I can find the button here. Okay, so I walked in, and this is what I walked into. Very serene, very peaceful. This is her office. Lots of essential oils. We'll set the stage here with the, what is that rock called, Jillian? That's,
Oh, it's a salt crystal
a salt
lamp.
crystal. There we go. So we've got that. We've got some awesome essential oils pumping. It is just very calming and relaxing in here.
Hello.
Say hello to Jillian. Here
Hi.
she is. All right. So we are here with Jillian. Tell us just a little bit about your practice, if you would, please.
So I am a hypnotherapist and an empowerment life coach. And I do, I see people for all kinds of different stuff, really. But essentially, my big level of expertise and passion is working with moms. So I do some work with children and, all kinds of different women and men as well. But really moms is my passion. So it works out nicely.
Yes, awesome.
MOMnation.
We just so happen to be a lot of moms here.
Yeah.
Nice. So let's just get started. Are you an Arizona native?
Yes. So I am an Arizona native. I was actually born in Flagstaff, Arizona. I've lived a bunch of different places. So I've lived in Colorado for a little bit and stayed in California for a little over summer and New Mexico for a while. And I've lived in Prescott and Flagstaff and Phoenix as well. But been here most of my life.
Awesome. What's your favorite part about Arizona?
I really like how much space there is. I really feel like people always talk about that when they come back from the East.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love the space. And I also really, really love that we can experience any type of climate we want. With just like, if it's cold and we want to get warm, we can, head south and vice versa. Here in Phoenix, obviously, we can just head up even to Payson. So I think that's awesome.
That is a great option. I love that too. Being from New England, I like having that capability to be able to travel and maybe see some leaves change a little bit. It's not quite like New England, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your family. You're a boy mom.
Yes, I am. So I have a 14-year-old son, and he's in 8th grade. His name is Dominic.
Aww.
And I just love him. He's great. And he is a big brother to a 2.5-year-old son that I have.
Aww.
So we kind of waited and did the gap thing, but it's actually really awesome.
Yeah.
Because they don't have that competitive nature that like is easier when siblings are closer together. So we kind of have this, built-in babysitter.
That rocks.
Yeah.
I could use one of those.
Yes, it's quite amazing, especially when we're getting ready for trips. When you're running around and everything's kind of crazy and you're trying to keep things somewhat clean. And so it's kind of nice to be like, can you just watch Grayson? Yeah.
Nice. Oh, I love his name.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you had a pretty serious life-changing event that happened about 15 years ago. What happened?
So when I was pregnant with Dominic, I actually ended up getting in a car accident when I was 11 and a half weeks pregnant.
Wow.
And it was a really serious car accident. So I ran into a tree. I was kind of going a little too fast into the curb. Too fast. I was planning on like turning and kind of had to turn a little more and hit a tree head on.
Oh my gosh.
And I almost died and went through this whole life-changing event. And
while pregnant.
Yeah, while 11 weeks pregnant, and broke 9 bones and had to learn how to walk again and had a ton of surgeries, all while pregnant. And so what's amazing, actually, is that Dominic everything's fine. So I was super, obviously, like, worried sick for the first couple months because they couldn't give me, everything's fine now. But
Right.
I had, over like 75 x-rays. I mean, it was just kind of bananas, right? All the stuff that should never, ever happen while you're pregnant.
Right. So
yeah.
How did that impact you as a first-time mom? Because there's a lot of stuff going on as a first-time mom, and now you're like bedridden and broken boned. And...
Yeah. Yes. It was actually a really, I would say, in retrospect, at the time it was a little crazy, right? But in retrospect, it was a really empowering experience because I learned that I could really do a lot with my mind, So I learned the power of focusing on, what I want and positivity and having, a positive outlook about things. And honestly, while I was in my care home, some of the people that I met, I realized that I was super lucky. So it was amazing.
That's profound. As you know, one of the greatest scientists that's ever lived has passed away. Over the last 2 days. I get the chills. I know. Rest in peace, Stephen. But one of his amazing quotes was, because of course he was very physically incapable.
Yes.
And one of his very amazing quotes that I read this morning or last night, but I've read it 1,000 times and I've loved it 1,000 times, is, to focus on the things that you can do rather than focusing on what your disability's not allowing you to do.
Yes.
So he couldn't be physical, but man, he could make his mind work. Yeah. And what amazing things he accomplished.
Yeah. I mean, then literally he couldn't do anything physically at all.
At all.
And the amazing things that he changed the world.
Changed,
right?
I've chills head to toe.
I mean, it's
actually, he's with us.
Yeah.
Hello, Stephen.
Yeah.
But he did. I mean, just to get up and do the talks that he did.
Yeah.
With the ailments that he had. I mean, most people just would give up.
Yeah.
Wouldn't get out of bed, basically.
Yeah.
So.
And it's amazing. I mean, it really is. And you realize, and I think usually a lot of people that I know have some big life-changing thing that's happened by the time they're, at our age, right? Mm-hmm. And it's always like when you talk to the people that have overcome and that did not let it define them in a negative way, mm-hmm. in a disempowering way, but they used it to kind of, pull them upwards. It was honestly like a blessing.
Yeah.
Every time a blessing, right? A blessing in disguise, certainly.
Right. But I mean, would you agree that really everything that happens is a blessing? It just depends on how you look at it.
Absolutely.
Creates that contrast in your life so that you know more of what you do want and you can focus your attention more there.
Absolutely. Because, and I think about it this way. If you look back, all the difficult things that have happened in our lives, they are significantly, they are what prepared the foundation for us to be who we are, mm-hmm. In every empowering way, to learn who we are, to learn what our power and our capabilities are. And, it makes such a significant difference mm-hmm. to have gone through that and realize that you can come up out of it and that it's so empowering and you learn who you are and about, what you're capable of. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
It's very empowering.
Now, when anything crazy happens, I mean, initially I'm like, no. But then I'm excited after that, at least for the end of it, right?
Right, right.
Like, woo, this is awful, but I'm excited for who I'm going to be at the end of it.
At the end of it, exactly. Yeah. That's such a great way of looking at it.
Yeah.
All right, next question. So tell me about how this event in your life inspired you to pursue your current profession.
So, because of that realization that I had about the power of thought, and I had this moment that shifted me because I had this crazy fear of being operated on while awake, and that kind of came to fruition. And I won't even go into that story, but it was awful, and my vein blew, and they thought that I had the anesthesia that I didn't. But I recognized the power. I was so done with the hospital after that, and I had this miraculous recovery. And that and several other events made me realize, how we can shift our lives so significantly. And I had always really wanted to, you know, I always had a passion for helping to support people and empower. And I was always the one that, you know, my friends all came to and things like that. And so it was kind of the culmination of all that that made me understand, like, I really want people to understand that they don't have to necessarily suffer if they understand the power of their intentions and their thoughts and their actions and monitoring those things. So, you know, I decided at that time that I wanted to be a life coach. And, you know, going forward from that, once I found this school, I ended up with a ton of issues throughout time. And I used to be in the corporate world. I worked for Charles Schwab for a while.
Oh, wow.
And I had, you know, kind of another event that happened to me. And it was just time for me, you know, to kind of to go after what I knew I wanted. And so I found a school that did life coaching. And within that, it was a degreed program. And so you could pick a couple other modalities. And so hypnotherapy was just part of one of the things that I thought was interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah. And what's funny is that once I started it, I realized that that was something that I thought was so much more impactful than even life coaching for me, not for everybody, right? Because everybody's different. But for me, I realized that I wanted it to be one of the focuses of my practice, like, you know, in the forefront of it, and use coaching kind of to support it, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the long answer.
Oh, that's cool. We should hypnotize me on camera.
I know.
But it's not that kind of hypnotizing where you like act like a chicken and stuff like that. Like that's not that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
That's more entertainment.
Yes. So I do, I don't do stage hypnosis, and you're in a similar level of trance, but it's gone about in a very therapeutic way, as opposed to, you know, like the quack like a duck or things like that. But it still accesses the same waves where you're very suggestible. And so that's, you know, you'd still kind of be in that place. It's just that I wouldn't do that, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's not a kid's birthday party here, right? What does a typical session look like?
So usually, you know, we sit here, I sit here, and my client sits there. And, you know, I start out with just what, like, my contract to my clients is, which is, you know, to be here with an open mind and an open heart, and, you know, hold you on positive focus. And a big kind of basis of my practice, Katie, is really focusing on getting more of what you do want and what is working, and to understand how the things that are not working, how, like, what's blocking that, so that we can get more of what is working. So we spend the first hour actually doing, like, coaching around that, you know, getting clear about what you do want and what's blocking you,
so
what you don't want.
For example, do you have anything, like, in your life that, you know, that's kind of bugging you at all? So, like, relationships or
it
things
could be,
like that.
so, like, let's say, for instance, kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that you're feeling, you know, that you're feeling like, you know, you don't spend enough quality time with your kids as a mom,
mm-hmm.
or that you're too frustrated all the time with your mom, as a mom,
mm-hmm.
You know, or you're feeling like you're lacking in some way, which is really common for us moms. Most of my moms come in with some level of guilt of not being good enough,
mm-hmm.
not doing enough. So let's say that that's something that's going on. So what we would do is we would get very clear about the individual, and this looks different for everybody. And usually there's a root of some sort. I mean, really always. Mm-hmm. There's a root of some sort that, you know, an initial, what we call it, you know, is the initial sensitizing event, where our subconscious decided, you know, I'm not good enough and I need to behave this way in order to survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get on in life, right? And so, you know, maybe that's that we need the house clean, you know, super, super clean. and that we feel like we can't spend enough time with our kids because we feel like we constantly have to have that house clean. So in that case, what we would talk about is all the things around that. And what do you feel like when the house is clean? Do you feel like a sense of peace and like you can be present and calm? And so we would take those feelings and we would put them in like the category of things that you want more of. And we talk more about what allows you to feel more peaceful and at ease and like things are calm. And then we would coach around what's blocking you from feeling that in general. And so it might be, that what comes up for you is that it's good to just get a house cleaner, right? But what comes up for somebody else is totally different. Maybe it's to get up, I've had it be for moms to get up just 30 minutes earlier in the morning so that they can do that and still have them time and then be present for their kids. So that looks totally different for everybody. But the idea is that we usually have blocks to these things, right? So we know what's best for us, but we just can't seem to do it.
And it causes a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And really your body, you said something that I picked up on during that description, and you said your body or your subconscious goes into survival mode. Because really that's what our subconscious and our body is constantly doing, is survival mode. And when we put ourselves in a constant state of stress, it's almost like the saber-toothed tiger is chasing us.
Yeah.
And can you imagine if your adrenaline and your body is in that state of stress for that amount of time, disease is going to come out of it.
Exactly.
There's going to be some physical things that start showing up, as well as the mental and emotional impact.
Exactly. And I think you said it because, and they know this, it's so significant, and there's so much scientific evidence that supports it, that really the basis of all disease is stress to some level or another, right?
Oh, yeah.
It makes our bodies more acidic. It does all kinds of stuff that ends in depression, cancer, MS, anxiety, everything. It's crazy. It really is, one of the foundational pieces of all disease, whether that be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever it is. So, it's amazing how much just changing one action in your life, it's amazing how much ease it can create. Just by getting up 30 minutes early, but you may have a block to that, right? And so then we would, interweave it into the imagery. And I always do my first sessions, I always do metaphors, and we just do deep hypnosis.
Nice.
Which is kind of like a deep, 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 very specific kind of meditative state. And so we would then interweave it into a metaphor. So it might be, something along the lines of, we go through a relaxation first and we relax the whole entire body. And then, you might be going down a beautiful path in nature and, and you're walking along this path and you come up to something like, I'll give you, for instance, an imagery that I really like using is like climbing a mountain of freedom. And so in preparing for this, you have this backpack. And in this backpack, it has everything you need for your adventure. And as you start getting up the mountain and it gets steeper and steeper, you begin to feel like it's heavier and heavier and it's like weighing you down, but you're still very motivated to accomplish, getting to the top of this mountain. And, we spend some time where, you end up coming up on a small campfire and a place to rest and examine everything that you have in the backpack, and that you begin to take it out. And you realize that it's all these things that have been weighing you down and that aren't serving you anymore. And the, need to feel like things have to be clean and you can't focus on your kids. And the frustration and the feeling like you're not good enough. And all this, and you start to throw it in the fire, right? And that as you throw it in the fire, it's liberated and it's gone. And then we go on and you get to the top of the mountain and, you feel, and you only bring with you what's beneficial and there. And, you see this whole new view of the world and the sun shining down on you and kind of creating this, support and this, new dedication and new self-love and blah, blah, blah. And we put everything in that we talk about that you do want and that you do want to experience. And, specific suggestions, it might be, you know, that you're able to wake up 30 minutes early so that you can care for yourself in your house or whatever that looks like. And then you just, you know, kind of go back down the mountain and allow this, you know, this light and this motivation to kind of grow and expand and bring it with you going forward.
That's cool. I bet a lot of people get to the other side of, you know, their hurdle with that visualization.
I mean, it's shocking how significant it can actually, some people after one session, like their lives are significantly different. For some people, it just takes off the edge and, you know, you continue. I always do recordings with my sessions. So you continue to listen to the recording and kind of peel the layers. People talk about peeling the layers. I kind of think about it as like an artichoke. But, you know, you kind of peel the layers, you know, every time you listen to it. And you go deeper, you know, until you get to the heart of it, right?
Right. Well, there's like a level of awareness there, too, that if you don't have that level of awareness, you don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
So how do you know?
Yep, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I know.
Awesome. So next question, what's the goal and the typical outcome of working with you? We kind of went through it a little bit, but do you have anything additional to add?
Yeah, so just, and you know, a lot of the time this gets into, usually it does take, depending on what we're working on, like if I'm doing a smoking, usually that just takes one session. But things like weight management or, you know, deep depression or, you know, postpartum anxiety, like those things that are bigger that have been mounting for a long time, they seem to just take a couple to a few more sessions. So in those subsequent sessions, then we go a little bit deeper. So that's when we do stuff like trance dialogue that you see in the movies, or people are doing, you know, regressions or we do all kinds of different stuff. But I practice it in a very kind of different, holistic, like safe way, if that makes sense. And people are always really aware and feeling safe in the way that I do it. And so the idea is getting to the root of whatever we didn't clear out in the first session with going super deep. If there's anything still there, then you have a subsequent session and we get to the root of it and we reframe it. And so all of a sudden it's an empowering story instead of something that was disempowering.
Stories are a big deal too.
Yeah.
So you touched on this a little bit. You specialize in helping with anxiety and depression and also addictions or problem habits, like somebody who might be struggling with weight, you know, health management. Tell me a little bit about that and sort of how that plays into postpartum needs.
So, yeah, so definitely I do, you know, smoking. That's kind of the thing that everybody knows that hypnotherapy does. And I do it in again, I have kind of a more holistic, like mind, body, spirit approach than just mental. And so we'll do a lot with the feelings surrounding it, no matter what we do. So even smoking, I go about it the same way. What does smoking do for you? Mentally, emotionally, physically, you know? So we kind of look at all those aspects, and then, you know, and whether it be smoking or, you know, weight management, and I get a lot of that stuff with moms, and honestly, a lot of the times it is stuff like depression or anxiety. I mean, most stuff really always comes down to depression and anxiety or anxiety. So, and the same with postpartum stuff. So it's really just about, you know, reframing whatever it is that has taken us into this slump or this kind of side path or, you know, this source of unwanted energy or drain of energy in some sense or another. And just getting clear about kind of unplugging from that and, you know, plugging into something that's going to be empowering, that will serve us. And with, you know, with postpartum anxiety and depression, the reason why this type of modality or these modalities are so effective is because we have so many blocks as moms. You know, we really, really have so many blocks about who we need to be, or, you know, what other people's perspective of us are, or if we're good enough in certain ways. And it just allows us to get past all those blocks. And instead of feeling like we're fighting this uphill battle to just wake up earlier in the morning, or to just, you know, eat healthier food and we know how to eat, or to, you know, just spend some time with self-care and, you know, spend 5 minutes a day going within and being quiet or breathing or taking an Epsom salt bath or whatever that is, you know, with caring for yourself and whatever that looks like, it allows you to get past the blocks that are keeping you from doing it. And so much of the time it feels like we're kind of like fighting this uphill battle, and it just levels the playing field. It makes it a normal choice that you make in life instead of, you know, it doesn't program you to definitely do this. It programs you to do it if it feels, at least the way I do it. It's always a suggestion that feels good. So we always get clear about what resonates with you.
It sounds like a release of judgment.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a really great way of putting it. It really just, kind of like, you know, the ego of it, right? All that limitation that we put on ourselves. And it's just that release of judgment and connecting really with who you organically are.
Right.
Yeah.
And being okay with who that person is.
Yeah. And loving and accepting yourself for that.
Because why not? There's only one you.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're looking at it from a point of view or perspective of not being enough for your kids, when you're enough for you, you're enough for everybody else in the whole wide world.
Funny how that works.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really amazing.
Cool. Is there anything in your office or about your office or anything physical that you would like to show us today?
You know, I do. So I work a lot with kids too. And this has been kind of a thing that I've started more recently over the last year. And so it's funny for people to know with kids, the really interesting thing is, so like I said, we work in metaphor and stories a lot. So books are amazing with kids. So I like to talk to parents a little bit about this, because if you find one of those stories that's super meaningful and that's metaphorical, and you can tell it in kind of a hypnotic voice at story time, it is amazing how significantly this can shift things. So, I mean, I've had kids with migraines, with food aversions, with test anxiety that have significant shifts after just one session. And really, we just tell a story. And sometimes for the little ones, they don't even actually want to close their eyes. So if you do it in a very, you know, I mean, you want it to be a super safe, really loving metaphorical story. But it's amazing. Like, I can show you, I have these little Harry the Hippopotamus books that are really awesome. So I can show you kind of what they look like. But the basis is, you know, just that you tell a story. And here, I'll show you. So this is kind of, you know, in this one, Harry teaches Haley and Connor about hypnosis. So they're at the zoo, and, you know, in this, they walk over a rainbow bridge. And of course, you know, the colors of the rainbow can stand for different, you know, parts and feelings and things like that.
Emotions and stuff.
Exactly. And so within that, you know, they walk over this bridge, and of course on the other side, they learn that they can imagine, that they can manage their emotions and their anxiety, and, you know, that they can be, that there's this magical power within them, that they can use their mind and their feelings when they get quiet to shift things in their lives. And for kids, it's really, really interesting because they're in imagination so much more than we are. They haven't shut down from those types of things yet.
They don't have all that self-judgment yet.
Exactly. So they are so much more willing, and they're really interested in the ideas of, like, you know, magical stuff. And so a lot of the times my kids like the idea that it's kind of, you know, they feel kind of magical, that they can, you know, control these things with just an image. And it's amazing how much it works. I mean, really, you know, we do a lot of things like, you know, you can release pain or fears or sadness into balloons, you know, and you wait and you watch them and you see them go until they disappear, and you feel light, you know. And there's just all this stuff that you can do in imagery with adults too, but this is something that you really, I mean, there's a lot that you can do, like with the knowledge of being a hypnotherapist and coach, but you don't have to start working with kids as long as it's a safe and gentle, metaphor. So that's my thing that I always get excited. I'm like, yeah, parents can do this really fun stuff too. That is, I mean, it's significantly effective.
That's cool. And so during a session with a child, would you kind of guide the parent in how to support these thoughts and activities at home?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So I usually work with the parents and how to do the stories at home, and I do a recording as well, but sometimes I'll get parents that just purchase the book if we're reading a story from this. I mean, I don't always do stories from Harry the Hippopotamus, but I usually start with that because it's nice for the children to have, they're used to books. Books feel safe.
Right.
And hypnotherapy for kids is very much about feeling safe. When you're suggestible, you're willing to be more suggestible, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're not like that if you're not feeling safe.
Right.
And so we usually start with like a book of some sort that's a very kind of metaphorical. You just tell it in a very calm and gentle way,
Mm-hmm.
And then the parents do it at home, and it's just, I still, like, it blows my mind all the time. I'm like, wow, we told a story once, and
look at all this.
Now they're, migraines decreased by 75%.
Wow.
So it really is.
It's crazy
amazing.
Effective. Yeah. Nice. So you had an event a short time ago. Can you tell us a little bit about that event, how that went, kind of what that was all about?
Yeah, so it was what I just did. It was actually just this weekend, and I did a vision board. I wish I should have brought one, but mostly everybody's heard of vision boards, and so I just did an event that was all geared around vision boards and how they work and getting authentic with it, like getting in touch with what you really want and what's really best for you, not just necessarily the idea of, wanting that new house, but what is the house? And I'm sure you can resonate with this. Like, what does that do for you?
Right.
How do you feel in the house? Like what energies does it bring about with you? How does it help you to feel harmonious? Those things, like the real, like, how is it really feeding you?
I see a partnership between you and I.
know.
You're going to have to come on showing appointments with me now.
We'll do imagery. Yeah.
That would be sweet, actually. There's an idea in there. Yeah, we'll meet after this.
Yeah. That's funny. So, and a big part of it is very geared towards, like, how can you take care of yourself too? How, like, who are you going to be when you're in that space? And most of the time, it's somebody that takes care of themselves and that honors themselves in some way or another, if it's authentic. And so big care, self-care, just like for moms or for anybody else, really, self-care is such a significant part of that. Whether it's, for some people that looks different. For some people, all they feel like they can start out with is 5 minutes a day of drinking tea and being quiet and having quiet time after the kids go to bed. And for some people, it's, going for massage or going to yoga or whatever that is. But self-care is such a significant part of being the you that's going to open up to receiving, if that makes sense.
Real quick, and I'm putting you on the spot here.
Okay.
Can you give our moms 3 easy tips on how to better focus on self-care?
Absolutely. So my, usually what I do is I ask, like, what helps you to feel, whatever you feel like you're lacking, what's on the other end of that? So let's say, for instance, you're feeling a lot of anxiety. Let's say, for instance, you have a lot of anxiety or stress in your life, and you get connected with what life would be like if that stress was gone. So what's the opposite of stress for you?
Ease.
Perfect. So with ease. So what creates more ease for you? What's a habit that creates more ease for you?
For me, honestly, it's being alone.
There you
Being
go.
alone so that I can, this sounds really funny, but I love working. And so being alone in order to organize my thoughts and create a to-do list.
Yes.
That's
So
ease
it
for
doesn't
me.
sound funny. It's everybody's so different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if being alone allows you to feel that ease so you can kind of get organized and create that to-do list, then it would be carving out whatever amount of time. So is there a certain time of day that would be better for you to do that, or is it a certain time of week?
Every day.
Okay, every day.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, it's every day. Is it better like in the morning?
In the morning.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
Fabulous. And so that's what it would be for you, right? Is carving out that time in the morning to be alone and, you know, be with your list and your organization and be with your thoughts. And, you know, and that doesn't sound funny because you're with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually what self-care has to do with.
Mm-hmm.
Self-care, you know, you can have fun, right? And go out with your friends and have some wine, or, you know, that looks different for everybody. But self-care is really about like filling up your cup, because usually the reason for depression and for anxiety and whatever else is weighing us down is because we have poured so much out of our cup and it's draining our life force because we're not replenishing at the rate that we're giving away,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just about filling up your life force, and being with yourself usually has something to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes total sense. And then we would talk about, you know, a commitment, right? So having a commitment to yourself that you hold yourself accountable for, and not like overdoing it to where you're going to
stress yourself out worse.
Yeah, and then beat yourself up for not doing it.
Right.
Like, this is about a realistic goal, right? So, you know, this is something that you already do, or is this something that you're wanting to?
Oh, I definitely already do it.
Okay. So then it would be, you know, talking about like time frame. So it would be like, how often do you want to spend every morning
mm-hmm.
carving out, you know, time to be with yourself? And, you know, and maybe, you know, for you, that would be an hour. Maybe for somebody else, it's 10 minutes. Who knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be about then making a commitment and what needs to happen for you to do that. Do you need to plan the night before? So some people just speaking that out, that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm like, I need to sit down on Sunday night and plan out my entire week and how I'm going to wake up and what I'm going to do in between,
mm-hmm.
you know, right? I have to really drill it down,
mm-hmm.
but some people don't need to. But it's just about doing the work that it takes to make sure you're holding yourself accountable. Maybe you need to set an alarm. I don't know.
So I love this. So basically the idea is put your mind into the state that you wish to be in. So for me, it's the state of ease, and that would be organizing my to-do list so that it's not all crazy up in here.
Yeah.
Then figure out what it is that you can, even if it's a very small change, figure out what type of change that you can incorporate into, whether it be daily or weekly, and then third, execute it.
Yep.
So it sounds very simple.
Yeah, and it does sound simple. And for some people, like, the planning is enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, if you have blocks to that, then that's when we incorporate the hypnotherapy to make it nice and easy. So it's just kind of flowy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, yeah, I can do this. It's not difficult.
Right.
It's normal. It's like making any other decision.
Right, and especially if it's something smaller, so
Yeah.
maybe start small.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, and that's really, yeah, exactly. You said it. So you want to set yourself up for success, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so I am all about having small, realistic shifts. I mean, stretching, right? I actually have this whole, I wonder if I have it. I did this at my vision board workshop, but let me see if I can show it to you real quick with my messy handwriting. Oh, I don't have handwriting on this one. Good. So I have these goals that I actually do a lot of the time. They're called smarter goals. And I like to do 90-day commitments. Like, what do you want to, you know, who do you want to be, really? Is
mm-hmm.
who do you want to be in 90 days?
Mm-hmm.
And then so let's say, for instance, you want to feel, you know, like you can have that, you know, that ease,
mm-hmm.
and you want to quantify it in a certain way. And so then you would say, you know, feeling at ease, you know, throughout my entire morning,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or throughout my entire day, maybe, who knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that would be like what you're being, the feeling of it, right? The vision. And then the focus would be, I want to have time that I carve out in my time to be aware and be with myself and feel at ease, at least blah, 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 right? Mm-hmm. And then you break it down into weekly goals that are achievable. And so, the first week might be adding 5 minutes in the morning and what you need to do in order to add that 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And maybe the second week is upping it by another 5 minutes. Or maybe the second week is adding a new practice that helps you to feel ease. Or maybe you address a different emotion, right? Mm-hmm. That's keeping you from ease. So, maybe it's about creating more time to, do something else or to go to yoga or whatever it is for you, right? Mm-hmm. And so we go like that throughout the month. And you have SMART goals. And I have another little paper that goes with this somewhere. And then you revisit it for the subsequent 2 months, and you just evaluate and revise, and maybe you drill down and, kind of get a little clearer or do something that's going to help you more. And so these are my smarter goals. That's what we do. And so the idea of a smarter goal is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it something that is attainable? Is it realistic? Is it timely? And then the E and the R is really what I encourage people to kind of go back and look at once they've, come up with that. And then just, that's kind of the evaluate or edit and revise. And so that's just getting clear about making sure that you have a goal, that's going to work for you. Mm-hmm. And that feels good. And just mapping it out. And, having something to hold yourself accountable for doing that. Because for some people, it's enough to just speak a goal. And for others, they need to drill it way down.
Right, yeah. Right. No, I totally get that. Do you have any events coming up that the moms can plug into?
So I don't have any planned currently, but I am going to do another vision board and manifesting where we kind of go over a lot of this stuff in much more detail. So I'm planning on doing that probably around the start of school.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I have a few other things that I'm looking at doing, but nothing that's actually in the date book yet.
Gotcha. But keep an eye on how can they get a hold of you if they want to chat with you, if they want to set up an appointment, like keep an eye on your Facebook page, yeah. Or what's the best thing to do?
Yeah. So you can either friend me, Jillian Holper CHt, or you can follow my Facebook page, which is Elemental Healing Coaching, or go to elementalhealingcoaching.com. But yeah, I share all, any events, any big stuff I'll share on my actual business page.
Awesome. And a phone number?
My business phone number is 928-793-3990.
Flagstaff number.
Yeah.
Going back to the beginning here.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we sign off here?
No, outside of the fact that whoever is listening to this, I would encourage you to consider that that you're hearing it for a reason, and that maybe it is a challenge for you to or an invitation, I should say, for you to do something to step into a little more self-care, to either start your self-care game or to up it a little bit. So
awesome. Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure sitting with you. I appreciate it. And your beautiful office that smells delicious.
Thank you.
And that was awesome. I learned so much. Thanks. Whenever I do this, I'm all like, okay, how's my hair? So definitely get in touch with Jillian, especially if anything that she said speaks to you. It probably speaks to everybody, especially the anxiety and depression and weight control and time management and how we feel about ourselves as moms with our children, how much time we spend, all that kind of stuff. Like, is it ringing a bell here? You guys have these thoughts that run through your head? I know I do. So anyway, if you're hitting this on the replay, do me a favor and comment replay at the bottom, just so that I know who is catching us live and who is not. That's really helpful for me. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.